This is Caitlin, your host of the No Sleep for Dramas podcast, where we get no sleep and survive on coffee to watch just one more episode at night. Welcome back to another episode of the No Sleep for Dramas podcast, and this week I'm starting something brand new. I know I've been talking about this episode for quite some time, but now today we are introducing it. And as you can see, this is a versus episode. Currently today we are doing an anime versus a Korean drama, but as might not always be the case. It might be like two dramas against each other if two countries adapted the same drama, or it might be like a movie versus a drama version, that type of thing. But the concept is it's the same subject matter, where that's the topic or the story, but adapted into various mediums, or two different countries adapted it. So, and then I watch both of them and I talk about them and see which one I like better, see if there's differences to whoever created it, so on and so forth. So, why did I do this? Two reasons. One is obviously we know that different countries may take other countries' stories and make their own version of it. And I always find it interesting to watch different versions and see which one I like better, maybe see how that particular country made it their own and put their own spin on it. But then also it gets me to watch different things, specifically in this case, anime. Like, I don't know if I've talked about it a bunch, but I used to watch a lot more anime than I do now, and I kind of want to get back into it because there's so many animes I have not seen. My watch list is so much, like so long, on both dramas and anime. But like nowadays, a lot more countries are adapting animes, or at least using the stories. So I found it interesting to watch the original and then doing like live adaptions and seeing what is what, which is why we are doing an episode on Parasyte. Now, Parasyte, the original, I think, is a manga. I have not read it. So this is going strictly off of the anime and then the Korean adaptation. Japan also did a Japanese adaptation, I think in a form of two movies. I tried to find those. I have not been able to find them on legal streaming sites. So I've only seen the Korean and the anime. And apparently I read that the Korean drama took stuff from the manga, not necessarily they took some stuff from the anime, but they also took some stuff from the manga, apparently. So I don't know if that's true or not, because I obviously have not read the original source material. But anyway, so one of my goals is to watch more anime. I always liked anime, and as I just said, the anime kind of took a back seat as I got more into Asian dramas. And since there's so many live adaptions out there or coming out, I figured why not do a comparison? It will get me the chance to watch more anime, but also to like watch more of these live adaptions, especially if like Japan has done live adaptions. I haven't seen a lot of the Japanese live adaptions, only mostly the anime. So it would be an opportunity for me to even try and find those. But as I said, like, it doesn't have to be anime. I might do this versus showdown on a C-drama versus the K-drama version, or a Thai drama versus the K-drama version, or so on and so forth. Or maybe it's like a C-drama old version and C-drama new version, you know? So there's a lot of different things that we could rework this, but the point is to pit two shows against each other and compare and contrast, and then see if I like one or the other. And that is what we're going to work with. So how this is going to work is I'm going to do a little mini review for both of them, and then like let you know my thought process and tell you which one I may like better. And then I'm going to go through like the compare and contrast that I found between the two mediums that I watched. So like today is an anime versus a Korean drama. And yeah, so that's the format that we're going with. So my first, also, like, quick thing. I will say this later on, but there will be spoilers. So if you have not seen the anime, if you have not seen the live adaptation and you want to, there will be spoilers. There's no way you're going to get around it. I have to talk about different things within both the anime and the Korean drama in order to talk about the compare and contrast of it all. So if you want to see these before you go and listen to this episode, this is one of many messages I will say in this episode. There will be spoilers. We are going to have a ton of spoilers. Just saying that right now. So first off, we're going to do the mini reviews. For context, I watched the anime before the Korean live adaptation, so I could get and the reason why I did that is I wanted to get a better idea of the world, the concept, the story. Originally, I actually thought the Korean drama was going to be a remake of the anime. So I thought I probably should watch the anime first because it was going to be a remake. That didn't turn out to be the case, which I actually liked. But I did watch the anime before the Korean drama, and I think that kind of, I wouldn't say it skewed my review of the anime, but I'll explain in my reviews what I think about that. So, when I watched the anime originally, I gave the anime a 7 out of 10. Before Parasyte the Maxim, I had not watched like a horror anime before. It was mostly like romance and like Sailor Moon, like I don't know. There's a word that you describe like the Sailor Moon type anime, and I can't remember, but like superhero anime, you know? This was my first introduction into like the horror anime because you guys know me. I am not a horror person. I try to stay away from that. Which, as I've explained before, is kind of ironic because I like crime, but for some reason I don't like horror, specifically possession, but horror in general. I've gotten better. There's some things I will watch, but that's beside the point. Anyway, this is my first introduction into like a horror anime, specifically like even like Japanese horror. I know Japanese horror is really scary, and I tend not to go about that. Honestly, it's not like that scary. It's more like gory and violent. That might be scary to some people. For me, it wasn't really that scary. It was more gory and violent. But I will say, because this was an introduction into the anime and into the horror genre, the anime did feel unique and different from any other anime I had watched before. Definitely violent, definitely gory. Trigger warning for that. Trigger warning for the anime and the Korean adaptation for gore and violence. On a positive note, I was not expecting the message of like saving the earth, like humans impacting the earth in a negative way, and the motivations of the parasites was to get rid of the humans. I was not expecting that message to be a major message in the anime, let alone the Korean drama. I did not like the romance choices, either romance choice. I thought it didn't need romance at all. There was so much going on in the story. There was no point for the romance. And then I also felt that the anime did not answer some lingering questions that I had by the end, such as where did the parasites come from? I mean, they just drop from the sky, or like, are they all gone by the end? What happened to them? Like, it kind of just ended. That being said, I think after watching Parasyte the Grey, even though I originally gave this a 7 out of 10, after watching Parasyte the Grey, I think that allowed me to appreciate the anime more because it added more context to the story that was already built with the anime. And I'll explain that in a minute. If I had watched the anime after the Korean drama, I think I would have scored it higher, honestly. Okay, so here's my review for the Korean drama. I rated this a 9.5 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. I adored it. I was really glad I watched the anime before the live adaptation because I came into the drama with more context and had more of an idea of what this story was about, what the parasites were going to look like, everything like that. I mean, I was building off of what I already knew from the anime, which I think helped me a lot to understand and connect with what was happening in the Korean drama. I think I'll explain this more in the comparison section, but because this story, the Parasyte the Grey story, was a spin-off and not a remake, I think I appreciated that even more because it wasn't a scene-by-scene remake, which I know other live adaptations have done, or even other comparisons of dramas have done, where they'll do, if you watch one, you'll already know what's happening in the other. I really like the fact that it was a spin-off and a completely owned story and not a scene-by-scene anime remake. Acting was good, CGI was great, the fighting and action scenes were really good. Spoiler again, the cameo at the end was really good, and because I watched the anime, I understood that cameo, which was amazing. I think the live adaptation suffered from the same thing as the anime did. They never answered like where the parasites came from or if all the parasites were gone by the end. And I think the reason for that was because the anime never answered that. I don't know if the manga does. I don't know if those answers are in the manga, but like they can't, I mean, they could have obviously added that reasoning into the drama, but maybe they didn't because they didn't want to. Either they're thinking of like a season 2 and they might answer it then, or the anime never gave that answer, so why would they make that up? Like, why would they tarnish, I guess is the word I'm looking for, like tarnish the story of the anime by making that part up, you know? Overall though, I did like the live adaptation more than the anime, but I appreciated the anime more once I watched the live adaptation. But I think I liked the live adaptation so much because I already had the context and the story from the anime. If hopefully you get what I'm trying to explain. So those are like my 2 little mini reviews of it. Still really good. Like, I think if you watched the Korean drama and you want more context or maybe like a different story but in that same genre, I would say give the anime a shot. Like, it's really beloved by people. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people were worried about this Korean drama because there was live adapting it, because there was already Japanese adaptions to it. I thought it did it justice to what Parasyte was supposed to be, in my opinion. But I'm curious what other people think, especially if you've seen the anime. Like, let me know if you guys agree with my reviews, agree with what I'm saying with the comparison thing. But I will say, I think I liked the live adaptation more than the anime. So now we're going to go into the versus section, the similarities and differences. I'm going to talk about the similarities first, and then I'm going to go through the differences that I spotted. And there's actually quite a lot. I didn't, honestly, when I came up with this concept, I didn't think I would come up with so many. I thought there'd be like 4 or 5 differences and comparisons. There's a lot. There's so much. I really, maybe it's just like these 2 things. I'm sure it's not always going to be the case, but these 2 things had a lot in common, but also had a lot that were different about it, which gives me a lot to talk about. So, first off is it's set in the same universe. Very early on in Parasyte the Grey, it's really apparent it's a spin-off. It's not a remake. So even though Parasyte the Grey is a spin-off, the drama is still set in the same universe, in the same concept that the anime was in. And the producers of that drama made it very clear on the story, how the parasites acted, some cameos at the end, which I'll explain in a bit. So you were, when you're watching the live adaptation of the K-drama version, you know very quickly that, in my mind, I saw it as the anime was happening at the same time in Japan that Korea was going on. Like the stories were happening at the same time. So this invasion of parasites, because it's established in the anime as well as in Korea that this is a worldwide parasite invasion. So my interpretation of that is like the anime and the Korean drama is happening at the exact same time, like parallel stories. Um both have horror elements and both have action scenes. The Korean drama and anime, as I said, are both the horror genre, gory, violent, plus the action scenes. There might be some difference in the action scenes, which I'll describe below, but both did have action scenes. Pretty cool ones, in my opinion. In terms of the parasites, one way that they established it was the same universe as the parasites acted the same way. They looked the same, they acted the same. There were like a couple differences between the Korean drama and the anime, which I'll explain later. But like looking right at the anime and the Korean drama, they have the same appearance. Like if you took, I'm thinking of like a specific character in the anime and a specific character in the Korean drama. There's a woman that wears white. And in the Korean drama, like her face opens up and the parasite is like in her face. And it looks like a flower. It looks like a sunflower type thing. That's the same thing in the anime. So, and then there's there's a scene where one of the side characters in the Korean drama is walking through, like, is it a greenhouse? I'm not really sure if it was I think it was just like a refrigerator room with like a bunch of bodies. And he's trying to stay hidden from a guy with a parasite. And he has the parasite coming out of his head, and the parasite arm is like flowing through these bodies and things hanging. The end of it looks like it's like has a shape that's like a half moon, and then it has an eye in the middle. Exact same shape in the anime. I mean, there's just how these parasites look between the two mediums are the exact same thing. So when I watched a trailer of the Korean drama, I was like, oh, they like made them look the same. And I immediately recognized that because in the anime, they're very distinct of what they look like. They also kind of act in the same way. Like it's in the anime and in the Korean drama, it's established that the parasites take over the host's brain. And so you see in both the anime and the Korean drama, like the parasites going through ears or mouth or nose, the quickest way to get to the brain. And so they act in the same way. They both fell from the sky. Like there's similarities between the parasites on actions and appearance, which helped and supported the same universe concept. Another similarity was it's the same takeaway message in both the anime and the Korean drama, that humans are destroying the world and the parasites need to exterminate the human race to save the planet. I mean, that's how I interpreted the message. There's other messages, which I'll talk about in the differences, but both the anime and the Korean drama had that message, sort of like an environmental save the earth underlying message. It wasn't thrown at you all the time. It wasn't like pushed down our throats or anything, but it was established in both the anime and the Korean drama that was a reason why the parasites were there. Not all the reasons, but a reason. Another similarity I had was both were violent and gory. I mean, the entire concept of both the Korean drama and the anime was the parasites were falling to the earth, and they were either taking over the hosts or the humans to eat other humans. So first off, you have a human who was taken over by a parasite. So the parasite goes into their brain, eats their brain, or does whatever to kill and take over the brain. So now they own the body. How the parasite attacks other people is literally unfolding a part of the host's body to show the parasites. And what was established in the anime is the parasite kind of uses the own muscle and bone structure of the host to form its own appendages. So, like in the anime, you might have a guy who his entire arm unfolds, like the skin comes off. So it's just like an arm of muscle and bone with like blades at the end of the hand. Or in the Korean drama, it's like the face pulls apart and all you see are eyeballs and the skin has become um like the appendages that with blades on the end. Um, and I'll explain there's some differences on how those work in both mediums, but like the concept is like you're seeing blood and muscle every time these hosts transform into these parasites to attack people. So it's pretty violent and gory. On top of that, though, they're also killing people and eating them. So you have like there's an opening scene in the anime where it's a husband and wife, really at night. You don't know them. They're like, and it's literally the husband, his mouth opens really wide, like it's his face opens really wide and eats the head of his wife because he's already been taken over by a parasite. I mean, it's a violent and gory show. And I'm not saying the anime or the Korean drama are more violent or more gory. I think they're equally violent and gory. It just depends on like what can you take, because the anime, it's all animated. So like, yes, you see the blood, yes, you see the violence, yes, you see the transformation of everything. I personally like, if since it's animated, it wasn't as ew to me, but in the Korean drama, because it's a live adaptation, it's a little more, I guess the word I'm looking for is like a little more disgusting to watch because it is a live adaptation. So I don't know. Both are violent, both are gory. And then on top of that, you have like humans fighting the parasites too. So you have soldiers fighting parasites at the same time. And there's just a lot of killing, a lot of fighting all the time. They don't shy away from the gore or violence, either one. So trigger warning on that. Another similarity is they have a storyline where the parasites have taken over or take over a politician or leader of the drama. So in the anime and the Korean drama, as the story unfolds, it's revealed that the parasite has a bigger idea. In the anime, the parasites do actually succeed in taking over a politician and start having a presence or try to have a presence in the government. And then in the Korean drama, the plot is revealed that they want to infect a politician, but are not successful. It's never revealed on like what they potentially want to do with that politician, because I'll explain later. One of the differences, but also kind of one of the similarities, is like the parasites realize they like study human society, and they realize that humans are stronger in numbers and they want that community for themselves. The Korean drama and the anime kind of do that differently. The anime, the idea for them is like, oh, we'll take over a politician and then start our own political party and have that community that way, in a way, as well as like having more of an authority figure in society, and so they can do more things. It's more of a political move for them, but also they're still looking for that community, that strength in numbers, whereas the Korean drama does that in terms of religion, which I'll explain in the differences. But they still both try to take over a politician and the leader to have more authority and have more say in human society. One being successful, one not being successful. As I said in my review, both have leftover questions by the end. I still had questions on like where the parasites came from. I had questions of like were they all dead by the end? Did they just kind of like disappear into society and try to like, we'll try to come back later? Like the anime and the Korean drama don't explain that. I had questions of like how the main two parasites in the two leads could like, are they actually gone? Are they just dormant? Like how is that gonna work? I think, as I said, I think the reason why Korea kind of had the same questions is because the anime never answered these either. Does the manga? I have no idea. So you will have the same questions no matter if you watch the anime or the Korean drama first. I don't think they answer them at all. Both of the leads in the anime and the Korean drama are recruited by government entities to help with the parasites. The main lead is special in certain way, which I'll explain in the differences. And this government entity realizes that they're infected by a parasite, and so the government decides to use the leads to their advantage. Um, in the Korean drama, this happened a lot sooner than the anime. In the Korean drama, like they recruit her. I wouldn't say I guess recruit is like a bad word because they didn't really recruit her. They tried to use her forcefully, and then was like, okay, fine, we need to work together to like help. So they were enemies working towards a common goal kind of thing, and the anime kind of was the same way. Um, in the Korean drama, this happened a lot sooner. In the anime, it happened within the last couple episodes. Because the anime, the main lead was trying to hide the fact that he was infected for most of the anime. Whereas in the Korean drama, they found out about the parasites a lot sooner, which I'll explain in the differences, and could also detect them sooner, which I think sped up the process. Also, the lead in the anime was not being kept captive, where the Korean drama, she was essentially being forced into helping out, and to some extent. So that's some differences, but they both ended up being recruited by these government entities. Another similarity is both of the leads had someone personal taken from them by the parasites. And this may be a trope. Like I think it's a trope when it comes to like these type of disaster dramas, disaster movies, is like the lead will lose someone they love to whatever disaster or whatever is going on. In the anime and the Korean drama, this was the case. They lost someone personable and special to them that was either killed or taken by the parasites. In the anime, it was the male lead's mother. She was taken over by a parasite, like she became a host. And then in the Korean drama, it was the cop that she knew from childhood. He also was taken over by a parasite. Both scenes were very heartbreaking to watch. It was done in a different way, though. In the anime, she was taken over by a parasite away from him, not in front of him, and then came back as a parasite and actually killed him. And his parasite had to like sort of resurrect him from the dead. But then you would have constant contact of this parasite coming back and trying to understand her quote unquote son after the fact. Whereas in the Korean drama, she watched him being taken over right then and there and fought the parasite that had taken over his body. But both of these scenes resulted in the story and like how the main leads like processed this and what they did next. I think both of them really wanted the parasite out of their loved ones. They'd rather see their loved ones dead than being used by a parasite. One was more successful than the other. The anime, he did succeed in that. In the Korean drama, technically she succeeded. Like they ended up being killed, but she also had some help. He did it alone himself. Another similarity is the parasites were hunting down the main leads because they were different. One common thing with the leads is because the parasite was unsuccessful in taking over the leads' bodies entirely, human leads could detect other parasites around them, but the parasites also could detect them and could figure out that they weren't fully taken over by the parasite. This allowed the main leads to kind of be weary of people and help them obviously to escape if they needed to, but it also caused other parasites to hunt them down because they viewed them as a threat. They were also curious. They were like, how the heck did the parasite become unsuccessful in taking over these human hosts? But also, because the human knew of the parasite, they saw them as a threat, and they were like, well, other humans would find out. We need to get rid of them before other humans find out about them. So the parasite and the human host were living in this like cohabitation scenario in the same body. But there were differences in how that cohabitation happened. And there were also kind of some differences in how the parasites hunted down and figured out that they were different as well. But both were still being hunted down by parasites. In the Korean drama, they were also being hunted down by humans. So it added a level of anxiety to the Korean drama. In the anime, because it took a lot longer for the humans to figure out that parasites existed, it was mainly him having to deal with parasites and not necessarily humans until the very end. Both the main parasites and the main leads sort of leave in the same way. So in both the anime and the Korean drama, the parasites are living in the main leads. They kind of say their goodbyes and sort of like walk off into the sunset. It is very unclear, 100% unclear if they're like gone, like they're dead, or they're dormant. I would have to say they're probably dormant, especially if the Korean drama is doing a season 2. But they kind of just like go off into the sunset. There's no real like 100% guarantee that they're actually gone from the hosts. But again, I think that's to set up a season 2. I think the anime may have wanted to do a season 2 at the time. I don't know. Again, I don't know if the manga had this way too, but it was different in terms of how it was done though. Well, sort of, because in the anime, they started communicated through dreams, and that's pretty much how the parasite walked off into the sunset, quote unquote, is like he did it in a dream. And technically in the Korean drama, she was like in a coma. So it kind of worked. So I guess it was a dream too, but I feel like they just did that because like they wanted, if needed, the parasites could come back, you know? All right, so those are all the similarities I found. And so now we're going to go into the differences between the anime and the Korean drama of Parasyte. One of the biggest differences is the main leads. So the lead in the anime is a male named Shinichi Izumi, and he's 17 when the anime starts and when he first becomes infected. This also makes his parasite male, which I don't really like. I guess the interpretation of his parasite is male. Like, there's no real like established gender of these parasites, but I'm assuming they just take the gender of whoever they take over, like the hosts they take over. In the Korean drama, though, the lead is female, whose name is Jung Soo In. Looks to be like mid-20s, early 30s, which also makes her parasite female. I know the actress herself is like in her 30s, but it was never really, as far as I can remember, like it was never said how old she was, but she was definitely not in high school. Because in the anime, you see him go through high school, but then also like graduate too. So another big difference is the placement of the parasites. So in the main leads in the anime, Shinichi Izumi, his hand and arm is taken over by the parasite. The parasite never makes this to his head. The reason why he did that, or it happened, was he put a like, I forget what you call it. He took like a belt and tied it around his upper arm, which caused like really tight. He made a tourniquet, basically. It caused the parasite not able to get past the tourniquet and had to like settle in his arm. So his entire arm is the parasite. Eventually, it goes to his chest when his mother kills him. The parasite had to move into his chest a little bit to rebuild his heart because his mother essentially like put one of her tentacles through his chest. So he had to like rebuild his chest and rebuild that and kind of like move himself in there. So by the end of the anime, it's like his entire chest and his arm is the parasite. And then when he fights people, that's what transforms is his hand and his arm. Eventually in the anime, the arm can actually get off the body once he adapts more and like just do its own thing, but only for a short period of time. We kind of saw that in Korean drama too. When the pastor died, he had to find a new body, and so he was able to move around for a very short period of time to find a new body, and that was kind of the same concept. The parasite's name in the anime is Migi. It's Migi. I want to say Mingi. I know I'm probably putting an N in there. In the Korean drama, though, Suin's parasite reached her head because it went through her ear, but it couldn't take over her brain because she was dying at the time. So the parasite had to save her life in order to survive and become her host, like be a part of her. So they explained in the Korean drama that she did take over the head, but because the host was dying, she had to use too much power to make sure she didn't die. So that's why she didn't take the entire brain. So she does live in the head. So when she fights, you see half of her face transform. And then another big difference is with the other characters in the parasites. In the Korean drama, most of the transformations, if not all, are in the heads. So mostly everything you see whenever you see a parasite fighting, it's in the heads. Some of the parasites within the Korean drama, you see other transformations like wings, but for most of it, it's just the heads and the tentacles coming out of the heads. In the anime, though, you do see a lot of the heads, different transformations, stuff like that, but some of them are limbs, some of them are all four limbs. They have dogs that have transformed that have wings. Like, there's a lot more variety when it comes to the parasites transforming. I'm not sure if we'll see that later on, if they do a season 2 of Korean drama, but at least within the anime, there was a little more variety. You still had the head transformations, but there was a little more variety with that. Another difference is how the two parasites worked with the hosts, with the leads itself. So the parasites took over the main leads. They took over them differently, as I explained, with the tourniquet, and then the female in the Korean drama was dying. They communicate differently, and they act completely differently. So in the anime, his parasite can actually talk to him in real time. Because it's a hand, he has a mouth and an eye that comes out every time he wants to talk, which funnily like makes it funny sometimes, because it's like Shinichi is just like walking around with his hand near his ear because Mingi is talking to him. He also, as I explained, can detach from the body and walk around for a bit, or like get really long, like he stretches the arm. So sometimes when Shinichi is like sleeping, Mingi will be like using his computer and learning about human race and things like that. He's like adapting. The parasite can also use technology. In the Korean drama, the female lead can't talk to her parasite in real life. The parasite has to use technology to communicate because it's in the head. So she'll make recordings of herself, like think of it as like possession. So the parasite takes over Suin for short periods of time, records herself talking to Suin, through notes or phone recordings or whatever. And then Suin comes back into the body and can watch these videos or read these notes. Suin, I think her parasite can only take over her body for like 15 minutes, I want to say is the max, which made it really interesting when it came to fighting. As I said, they can both like talk to their hosts in dreams in various ways. Suin, I think, like, it wasn't really a dream, it was more like coma. So, like, they were both kind of, I don't know, I interpret that kind of as a dream, but she was always in a coma when those conversations were happening. And then also another commonality is both parasites need to sleep to recharge, which in the anime, Mingy would like randomly go to sleep, which caused like a lot of somewhat comical moments, but also some anxiety inducing moments because Shinichi would like run into a parasite and have to fight, but Mingy would be sleeping, so he wouldn't answer and wouldn't be able to like transform his arm or anything. Um, so in terms of Suin's parasite, you also saw that there was a couple scenes where he was like, I need to sleep now. And Suin would eventually come back too. So they also both needed sleep to recharge, especially because Suin parasites could only be awake for like 15 minutes. Another difference is the parasite attitude with the leads themselves. So in the anime, in the Parasite, Mingy like treated his host and the world differently than Heidi. Heidi is the Suin's parasite's name in the Korean drama. So Mingy and Shinichi fought all the time, especially when it came to like killing another person or killing a parasite. Like Mingy obviously didn't want to be detected at all. Like he didn't want to be found. Shinichi, it took like he also didn't want to be found, but he didn't want to like kill people to not be found. Like he didn't Mingy was like, "Oh, we have to kill this person or he'll run off and tell the police." Shinichi was not okay with that. Heidi always sided with Suin. Whatever Suin wanted or didn't want to do, she was okay with. Mingy also threatened Shinichi all the time, like, "I'm going to go and transform and kill your father." Heidi never did that. Heidi never threatened her friends and family. Mingy did it all the time. Heidi also never wanted to work with other parasites, but Mingy always wanted to go and work with parasites. He wanted to be involved and kind of wanted to help take over the human race. So that was a very interesting relationship because he had to survive with this human, but he didn't want to go with what Shinichi wanted to do. He was very much a parasite. Heidi also helped her host a lot faster than Mingy did. Like Mingy's main goal, as I said, was to survive. And he would do it in any way, shape, or form and hated the fact that he had to cohabitate with Shinichi. He even like at one point like threatened to cut off on more of Shinichi's arms or legs if he tried to expose his parasite to the world. He did not care about Shinichi unless it was from a survival standpoint. Eventually that changed. Like later on the anime that did change, but for most of the anime, Mingy cared about himself and only himself. Unless it became a survival thing. Like they had to kill this parasite or they would both end up dead. So that was a major story point within the anime, is them hating each other but having to survive. Whereas Heidi was a little more docile when it came to working with Suin, and they had a more mutual cohabitation, in my opinion. Another big difference is there was no romance in the Korean drama, which I absolutely loved. Anime had two separate romance options. Neither, in my opinion, were good. Neither were needed. It was not, they were not needed whatsoever. As I said, the Korean drama was a spin-off, which I loved a lot. It allowed the Korean drama to be similar because it was built in that same universe and in that same story. But it was able to create its own story and its own identity and not be a direct adaptation. So, like, for example, none of the anime characters showed up in the Korean drama except for the cameo at the end, which was great because then, and this is spoiler, the cameo was Shinichi at the end. So Shinichi comes in at the end, very last scene, cameo. I want a season 2 with Shinichi helping out. That would be me. But before that, you didn't get any of the anime characters at all. Like, not even a mention of them. Not even like a mention of Japan. So it was very much its own story and its own identity of a story. Story concentration was a little different in terms of the anime, as I kind of have been saying. It was more of like Shinichi and his struggle with being taken over by a parasite, him dealing with having his world turned upside down with his mother dying and his father kind of not being able to cope with that, and him having to deal with living with Mingi in this cohabitation situation. So it very much concentrated on him and his own personal journey through this thing. Whereas the Korean drama took more of a broader topic. Like, it was still Suin's struggle with this, but it concentrated more of the Korean society and how they dealt with the parasites as a whole. And they had more of an ensemble cast than what the anime had. So you saw more of a broader perspective of humans fighting against parasites, whereas the anime was very much an individual fighting against parasites until it wasn't. But for the most of the anime, it was just Shinichi dealing with these parasites by himself. Another difference is they both did have action sequences. The action sequences played out differently due to the fact that the concentration of the story was different. So, as I just said, Shinichi was his own individual struggle. So it was a lot more parasite on parasite fighting, where he would encounter a parasite who would become curious on the fact of why he was having this cohabitation thing. And then they were like, oh no, he's a threat. We need to kill him. So Shinichi had to defend himself. Whereas in the Korean drama, it was a lot more human versus parasite scenes because they discovered the parasites a lot earlier on than in the anime. So you had the Gray come in. The Gray was that military police force that came in. They had a lot more fights with the parasites. Suin still fought some parasites, but it was a lot more humans and parasites than the anime. Also, the fact that, like, Shinichi was trying to hide the fact that he was infected by a parasite for most of the anime as well. Whereas Suin, she was trying to hide that fact, but it was a lot harder to do because the Korean society found out about the parasites a lot earlier on. Another difference was the character dilemmas. So in the anime, due to it being a more individualistic story, that caused the parasites, the main parasite characters, to have a more individualistic story. So the idea of moral dilemmas came up a lot more. So most of the major parasites in the story in anime were asking all of these philosophical questions of, like, the meaning of life. Where do they place in terms of the universe and society? How could we cohabitate with these humans? Like, would there be a possibility of cohabitating with these humans? And what would our role in that universe be, and what is the role of life forms in general? So it was a lot more philosophical questioning on an individualistic level when it came to the anime, particularly because they did want to survive. The parasites did want to survive. They knew the only way they could survive, though, is they had to eat humans. They had to get rid of the humans. But was there a way that they could live side by side, obviously trying to find food and survive, though? So it was an interesting concept because, in a way, the humans were kind of doing the same thing. Like, they were debating, were human lives more important than the parasites' lives? Because But they did the same thing. The humans were finding food and trying to survive. The parasites were finding food. It just happened to be other humans and trying to survive. So there was a lot of these philosophical questions going around with the Parasite characters. In the Korean drama, we had none of that discussion whatsoever. Like, none of that discussion happened at all. Um, as I have hinted before, too, difference in discovery of parasites in the anime, it's unclear when the first parasites came into the society, like dropped down to Earth. But overall, the public did not learn about parasites for some time. Like, the government kept it under wraps if they did know, and most of the parasites decided to live in shadow and like hunt and survive without the humans finding out. So they actually built like these quote unquote safe houses where they would take their meals to. So it was like an underground garage. They would like take their date to this underground garage and then eat her. And it would be no one around, no CCTV, and they could get rid of the body afterwards, you know? And that's how they survived and lived for quite some time. And then you had some of these, like, this, like, council of parasites, various, like, politicians, but also regular hosts, regular people who met in secret and tried to dictate, like, how they could survive, how the parasites could survive, and what they could do to stay hidden. It was very much that was a goal, as they wanted to stay hidden and survive, but slowly take over this human society. In the Korean drama, though, the humans learned about the parasite's existence like right away, due to the fact in the first or second scene, you see that a DJ, I want to say it was a DJ at a music festival, like a big music festival, gets infected and then immediately starts attacking humans. And obviously with social media and everything, that went viral and got around. And so there was no way to contain or hide it whatsoever. Like the society, Korean society knew about it right away. They might not know what it was, but they knew the existence of it pretty much right away. So there was no hiding it or whatever, which is why the Gray, the militaristic group that came into being, existed, because they had to lock down the area very quickly and like use the opportunity to research them as much as possible. And the Japanese government just didn't do that. Eventually they did kind of put out like a news broadcast, because like one of the things that was discovered eventually, and which was also a similarity between the anime and the Korean drama, is if you pulled out a strand of hair of another person, and if it just was like a regular strand of hair, kind of just fell away, still looked like a hair, they weren't a parasite. But if it like shriveled up and like disintegrated, that meant that it was a parasite. And so eventually the Japanese learned this and put it out in like a news broadcast. So like it became kind of like a joke. Like there was a greeting that you had to do whenever you walked up to your friend in the morning or your coworker, pull out a piece of hair, and if it shriveled up, you knew your friend had been a host or became a parasite. Korean drama had that same concept. You pulled out a piece of hair and you would know if they were a parasite or not. They kept that same concept. But the anime didn't put that out until like 3 or 4, maybe 5 episodes into the anime. So it was very much the government did not want society to know about this for as long as possible until they couldn't contain it anymore. The last difference I saw was, and I did mention this a bit, the anime, again, as I said, was from Shinichi's perspective. It discussed themes more of an individualistic side of things, such as the meaning in life and why something exists in the universe. Parasyte the Grey used their platform to explore themes on a broader scale. It discussed like the importance of communities in a society and for people, how communities could help people in many ways because the parasites were seeking that same community. But it also explored corruption, which we obviously have, like, that's a very common trope when it comes to Korean dramas. But corruption in terms of authoritative like perspective, but also the parasites corrupting the authority figures in human society, which with it was an interesting take when it came to corruption, because it was funny because the parasites were like judging the humans' corruption of their politicians, but also they were corrupting, for lack of a better term, they were corrupting the humans and being that corruption in human society, which was interesting concept, and was kind of like a straightforward idea of corruption in a way. But these again are kind of like common things and themes you see in Korean dramas, because Korean society, as we know, have a bunch of like problems with corruption, like the idea of corruption, because it happened in the past so much. They are adamantly against corruption nowadays. So obviously they're going to use this to kind of hammer that topic home, and they did it in a very unique way, I think, because being overtaken by parasites as a form of corruption was a brilliant idea, in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much all I saw in terms of differences and similarities. I'm really glad I watched both of these series. Again, it allowed me to appreciate both of them more because I had the background. I need a season 2 for this Korean drama though. If Shinichi can come back in season 2, I would love that. Now, I will say I did see some social media topics. I, for one, as I said earlier, the Korean drama and the anime, for me, I thought it like went parallel stories. They were happening at the same time. Other people thought that it happened after the Japanese, because of the fact that Shinichi, at the very last scene, it zooms in on his hand, which obviously is where Mingi would be. Obviously he didn't transform in front of these Korean, the gray military people. And he also presented himself as a journalist. So some people speculated that the Korean drama takes place after the anime, which, because Shinichi kind of introduced himself as the expert of parasites. So I could see how that happens too. Um, or it could be that scene happened after. Like everything happening with Suin and Shinichi happened at parallel times, but then the scene of him coming to Korea and introducing himself as a expert may have happened later. I'm not really sure, but people also thought it was a later story due to that scene. I don't really know if it was ever 100% established or not. I don't know. But either way, it's fun to think about, you know? But yeah, I still like the Korean drama more than the anime, but the anime is really nice. I think if you like the Korean drama and you want more context and you want especially to know about like why that cameo happened and how important that cameo is and what that could do to a season 2 if they did do a season 2, I would watch the anime because that gives you a lot of context, specifically with the person who cameoed, obviously. But overall, if you guys want to watch a fun horror action filled Korean drama or anime, I would highly recommend either one of these, Parasyte the Maxim or Parasyte the Gray. Parasyte the Maxim I watched on Hulu, so it might be on Disney Plus, it might not, I'm not really sure. And obviously Parasyte the Gray is on Netflix. But thank you for joining me for my first Versus Showdown. I hope you enjoyed this. I really had a lot of fun thinking about the comparisons and differences of two shows. And please let me know if you enjoyed this, because I want to do more of them, because I have like 4 or 5 other like Versus Showdowns I think I could do. It allows me to watch more anime, as I said, but it also just allows me to watch different countries' dramas and compare them as well. And I have a lot of fun doing that. So please let me know in my social medias if you like this, if you enjoyed my thoughts and opinions on the differences. If you watched both of these, let me know if you think I was correct or not, or if you found any other similarities or differences that I forgot or mentioned. Please DM me. Please let me know. Let's have a conversation, because as you can tell, I loved doing this episode. But that's it for now. Thank you. If you want to continue the conversations about dramas that were started in this episode, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter under the username No Sleep for Dramas. That is No Sleep, the number 4 dramas, just like in the title of the podcast. This podcast is also an expansion of my blog, so you can visit my blog at www.nosleep4dramas.com, the number 4 dramas.com, and find multiple years of blog posts already available at your fingertips. All links are in the description of this episode. This has been an episode of the No Sleep for Dramas podcast, and I am your host, Caitlin. I will see you here next time, and I hope you get no sleep chasing the next episode just like me. Good night.